Hello class, good morning. I hope that everyone is doing good. So if you can still remember with our previous discussion, we had our classroom orientation, and I hope that everything is clear to you, especially with regard to our classroom orientation and classroom agreement. For today's video, we will be discussing our first lesson for this subject, and that is language and communication. So, sir, what is language and communication? So, but before that, before I answer your questions about language and communication, our topic will be, or we will discuss all of these topics. First, the nature of language. Second, communication principles. And lastly, we will discuss also the guidelines for effective communication. So according to Noam Chomsky, language is a process of free creation. Its laws and principles are fixed, but the manner in which the principles of generation are used is free and infinitely varied. So although language in general is fixed and its laws and principles in particular are fixed in nature, but when it comes to the manner of using the language, you are free to use the language itself because language is varied. Same thing with no two person is alike. Even language itself is unique. Now, what is language? Language in layman's term or in definition in general has a system of rules. So this system of rules is what we call grammar. A language also is consist of sound system or what we call phonology, and language itself has even lexicon or what we call vocabulary. So sir, what is speech community? So speech community refers to a place where people share the same set of rules in their language system, or it is a specific place wherein the same people have the same language. For example, in Surigao City, that is an example of speech community because they have their own dialect and they are using the Surigaonon. Okay, so same with in Iloilo. If you are in Iloilo, so Iloilo is another speech community because people there talk or people there use the Ilonggo as the dialect. And same with the people of Zamboanga, they use or they are using the Chavacano. So these are all examples of what? These are all examples of speech community. Sir, how about language acquisition? So the language acquired by people in their community is what we call language acquisition. For example, I've been living in Kabadbaran for my whole life, and then during my when I turned 40 years old, I decided to move to America, for example. So the language that I acquired while living in the Philippines will also be changed, and I will also acquire the language that most of the Americans are using, and that is Spanish and English, their native language. So that's language acquisition. That's the language that you acquire while you are living in a certain community where you are part of a certain community. So you have to adapt also to their dialect or local dialect. Now let's move to mother tongue. So mother tongue refers to the language acquired while growing up. It is also your first language. So here in Kabadbaran, your first language is of course Bisaya or Cebuano, diba? So that's your mother tongue. And then later on, you realize that you want to explore another language, so you decided to learn English, then that's language acquisition. So you acquired English language, but it is not your mother tongue language. Okay, so that's how both language, mother tongue, and language acquisition differ from each other. Now let's move to second language. The other languages that are learned because they are needed for various reasons. So English as second language, ESL. So we are using or we should learn, or a lot of people want to learn English because this is the medium of communication that a lot of people uses or a lot of people use in a certain workplace. Okay, so you are learning or you want to learn a specific language because it is an absolute must for you to learn that specific language kasi they are required or that language is required in a certain workplace or various reason. Now let's move to, we have language contact. So language contact occurs when speakers of two or more languages or varieties interact and influence each other. So di ba you are already aware that we have two varieties of English language. We have the British and American. That's why there are certain spellings, uses, phrases na makaingon mo nga, they differ a lot because that specific language, especially for example, when you are using the British language, they are not calling elevator as an elevator because elevator in British English is what we call lift. Okay, so lift in British, elevator in American. TV or television in American English, but if you are using the British English, that's tally. Okay? So these are the differences of English as a variety, American English as a variety of language, English language, and also the British as another variety of the English language. So when an American speak and they interact and somehow they both influence each other's language, then that's what we call language contact. If there is already an influence to both languages or varieties of language. How about language change? It is a result of language contact through language contact or variation over time in a language feature. So even if you are American and then you are used to use American English, but then through a constant contact, a language contact, nahimo na nimo nga na change the way you use the language, and from American gi-adapt na nimo ang British nga variety of English. So that's what we call language change. So there is a specific change with how you use the specific variety of language or the medium itself. So the process of language learning happens when people learn second languages formally in school or informally on their own. So sir, you mean that we can also learn a specific language outside the four corners of our classroom? Then the answer is yes. So you are learning informally because you are not inside an academic community, you are not part of the academic community, so still you are learning a specific language even in the comforts of your home. So that's what we call, you are learning a specific language informally. But if you are enrolled to a specific course or curriculum and your focus is language development or teaching specific language or English a secondary language, then that's what we call learning a specific language formally. Right? So that's how you learn, formally or informally, but either of the two, the what really important is you are learning at the same time. So now let's talk about the communication principles. We have a lot. Let's talk first the verbal communication, which is very obvious. Verbal or oral communication is when the thoughts or ideas are expressed orally without saying any written matter. So there are a lot of people who likely or most likely they are comfortable talking or they are comfortable expressing themselves through oral form. So they are very open and then they want someone to listen to them. So these people are what we call, they are expressive verbally. Okay, so this is what we call verbal communication. Then the opposite of verbal is we have written communication. So written communication involves the usage of written material to express ideas. It uses different writing styles, creative content, clear handwriting to attract the reader and make the content more enjoyable. So this type of communication is loved by people who are introverts. So if there are people who are very comfortable talking and sharing their experiences or sharing their ideas, there are also people who are not comfortable to do the exact same Communication, that's why they opt to just write and express themselves through writing. It could be through writing a poem, a story, through creative writing. So these type of writings, most people enjoy, or introverts people enjoy this type of writing rather than the oral communication. And then we also have what we call non-verbal communication. So through gestures. So non-verbal communication doesn't need for you to speak, doesn't need for you to write, but through your gestures or body language, even your postures, your hand gestures, even your lips, then you are already communicating without saying a word. So that's non-verbal communication. Then we have guidelines for effective communication. How it is very important for you to be communicate effectively. Yes, we can all communicate in a day-to-day basis, but communicating effectively is another part of the story. Everyone can communicate, but not everyone can effectively communicate. So we should know the difference. So, sir, what are the guidelines for effective communication? Of course, you should be very clear with your purpose or with your message. There should be clarity. So, clarity is an absolute must. For you to be understood, then you should be clear and concise with your speech, with your message. Then, your message should be short and crisp. All right, so that's for you to be clear and well understood. Another, you don't have to be clear all the time, but you should also be or use simple words. Therefore, you should avoid jargons. So be wary of using bombastic words and use simple words instead. If you think that people will be impressed on how technical are you of using a specific word, then that's not the point here, because you don't have to be or use words which are 6 feet below the ground, but you should only need to be simple with your words. So simplicity connects people. So a clear example is when we are having a political campaign, diba? So although these uh, candidates, for example, presidential candidates, although nakaskwela sila sa mga nindot nga eskwelahan, but if they want to communicate and make a connection to the people themselves, no, to the people of the Philippines, for example, dili kay sila magamit og English words, usually Tagalog. If naka sa Kabadbaran, Bisaya, siya Bisaya on, for you to be able to connect with your constituents. So use simple words. Then be other-centered, not self-centered. So a key to effective communication is having a genuine interest in other people. So you should be interested. For example, folded arms. So if your arms are folded, then it means that you are disinterested or you don't like to listen to other people. You're not open-minded. But if you are leaning forward, it means that you have a very strong interest to that particular person or whoever person is talking. Okay, so that's being genuinely connected to other people. You show a lot of interest. Then give respect. So respect also is an absolute must. Treat everyone with respect. Everyone knows something we don't. That's why we should empty our cup. It doesn't mean that you have you are advanced, diba, in a specific field of specialization, then you are no longer to empty your cup. So that's why I keep on saying to my students that we should not terrorize ignorance, but we should acknowledge that we are ignorant, because every day if you acknowledge that you are ignorant, therefore there are still a lot to learn. And when you learn, you have to empty your cup. Okay, so you don't have to tell people that you are very intelligent, that you know everything. You have to empty your cup and you have to give respect. And you have, by doing so, you should let to other people be heard also. Dili lang ikaw. So give people the best treatment possible. and make them feel like a winner. Therefore, both of you are having a comfortable conversation and a smooth sailing one if you have respect. Then expand your vocabulary. So improve your vocabulary by learning new words, as this is the best way you can improve your communication as well. So we should never settle for less. So sir, kung saan pag-expand sa vocabulary, watch documentaries or news, di ba? Read and read. And then if there are certain words where you are not sure, so take a look for the meaning first before you use that specific word para ma-share po nimo na siya. And then, you should also willing to educate other people. Dili lang kay ikaw lang gusto ma-learn. You should also let other people learn something from you. Words are the tools we use to communicate, and you have to have a great repertoire of words in your speaking arsenal. Grabe na repertoire and then speaking arsenal. So dapat nagyud kay storage. You have a really big storage for these vocabularies para if nagani bakbakan, so nakaikabala. That's arsenal. Then, have polite manners. Maintain eye contact with the person while in conversation. So, sir, we are not very comfortable with that. Yeah, I know. But we have to maintain eye contact because, like what I've said, even these simple gestures means a lot to them. Okay? So, pag dili kay ka mag-establish ng eye contact, it means that aside from you're not comfortable, makaingon sila nga you are not interested. Okay? So don't use the cell phone or watch television while communicating with others. Give the person undivided attention. When you say undivided, iya ra gid na tanan. Right? So especially if that particular person is having a problem and kaning daghan kay siya amigo but ikaw gyud ang giduol niya, it means nagid siya gusto i-share sa imuha. Therefore, you should give him or her undivided attention. Iya ra gid attention. You have to listen. You don't have to argue. You don't have to kaning musapaw ka, but you just have to listen. Allow him or her to speak, express o sige bati niya, and after that, you talk. Okay? So, having polite manner is also very important. Then, inspire and motivate. The purpose of language is to inspire and motivate people through your communication. That's why, class, if wala ko na teacher, maybe one of the things that I like para gyud makita gyud akong purpose is I want to motivate other people. I want to inspire other people. I know that although we are not perfect, but there is always perfect in us. It could be our experiences are really perfect in shaping us kung naunsa ta karon. Okay? So your story could be a light to other people. Diba? So in that way, you are not just motivating, but you are inspiring. And you are not just inspiring, but motivating. So, kanang duha, part and parcel, yun na siya. Dili pwede nga ma-inspire ka without motivating. Dili po pwede nga you just motivate without inspiring. Alright? So words are the tools with which to empower people to live their highest vision. Use words that are positive and bring out the best in people. That's why we should not criticize a particular person immediately or without having an assessment first. Kasi no two person is alike. If you can handle stress, it doesn't mean that that particular person can also handle stress the same how you handle it. Alright? So, inspire and motivate. Then you have to align your words with deeds. Therefore, you have to walk your talk. There should be no gap between what you communicate with who you are. So for example, if you're saying na, class, we should not do this, we should not do that. Therefore, you, the one speaking, should also do the same. You should walk your talk. Provide a compelling reason for the audience to pay attention to you. Once you have the attention to deliver your message with enthusiasm and passion. So once you already have the audience attention, then deliver your message with so much enthusiasm and for you to be able to connect with them. Next, you have to review yourself. That's why we have what we call intrapersonal communication. So, remembering something or assessing yourself. So, meaning ka nga, what could be the consequences if I do this, if I do that? Then you have the self-assessment. You have to review yourself. If na-align pa ba ang imong ginaingon sa imong ginabuhat? That's why you don't have to kaning walk your talk all the time, but you should also review yourself while doing the walk your talk mantra. Okay, so review yourself, honestly self-evaluate your communication results on a regular basis, and adjust the sales to make your communication even better. So if naika criticize ang people, either constructive or destructive, then for you to have peace of mind, you just ignore the destructive ones and just focus on the constructive ones. Nga na pag review sa mong kaugalingon. Okay, we have to what we call that one, we have to look for the focal point, we have to refocus kung asa dapat ang positive rather than focusing on just on those things nga wala gyud mahatag sa atoa in general. So those are the things that you have to bear in mind for you to be effectively communicate with other people. I hope, class, that you have learned something today, especially on how to communicate effectively. With everyone can communicate, but not everyone can effectively communicate. So take note of that. I hope that from now on, because of this lesson, you can able to effectively communicate. So remember, maka-remember mo ba nga, okay, naingon na ba sa lesson no nga, if someone is talking, we have to give him or her undivided attention. Alright? So, I hope that this lesson will also do the same transformation sa inyong life and also sa ako ang life as the one teaching this lesson. So, walk your talk all the time. Thank you so much, class, for listening. I hope you have a great and good day and see you in our next lesson.